By the Governor General of the Commonwealth of Australia, Her Excellency the Honourable Sam Mostyne, the Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Anthony Albanese, the Minister for Defence Personnel, the Minister for Veterans Affairs and the Minister with responsibility for the War Memorial, Matt Keogh, the Chief of the Defence Force, Admiral David Johnson, and the Chairman of the Council of the Australian War Memorial, the Honourable Kim Beazley. I will now hand over to you, the Governor General, Her Excellency Sam Mostyne.
Thank you, Matt. A few days ago, I had the great privilege of speaking to Mrs. Robin Freeman to advise her that His Majesty has approved the awarding of the Victoria Cross for Australia to her late husband, Private Richard Norden. The citation for Private Norden reads, "For most conspicuous acts of gallantry in action in the presence of the enemy in the AO surface area of operations in the Bien Hoa province, Vietnam, on 14th of May 1968, during the Battle of Fire Support Base Coral." Sadly, Private Norden died while on active service with the Australian Capital Territory Police in 1972. The Victoria Cross for Australia is Australia's highest military honour. The awarding of it speaks to Private Norden's courage and selflessness in the heat of battle, his ongoing legacy and the bravery of generations of our service personnel. This is an historic occasion for Australia and the Australian Defence Force, and a very significant day for Private Norden's loved ones. When I spoke with Mrs. Freeman, I conveyed the appreciation of all Australians for Private Norden's service, our admiration for his courage, and our hope that this recognition, our nation's highest, brings a further sense of pride and affirmation that he will never be forgotten. Now I'd like to share a statement from Mrs. Freeman, who would prefer not to be contacted by the media. "We are honoured that His Majesty has approved the Victoria Cross for Australia for Richard, recognising his gallantry actions while serving in Vietnam. We would like to keep this special occasion private, and if you have any further questions, please contact the Department of Defence or the Office of the Official Secretary to the Governor General." I also committed to Mrs. Freeman that we will now work with her family, Defence and all other stakeholders to arrange a very special investiture, a ceremony that will befit the award and its great significance to Australia and all Australians. Thank you.
The citation for the award of the Victoria Cross for Australia, Private Richard Norden. For most conspicuous acts of gallantry in action in the presence of the enemy in the AO surface area of operations in Bien Hoa province, Vietnam on the 14th of May 1968 during the Battle of Fire Support Base Coral. During Operation Toan Tung, 5th Platoon, Bravo Company of the 1st Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment, were ambushed and came under heavy fire from an estimated squad of 7 to 10 North Vietnamese Army regular soldiers. Private Norden, a member of the leading section, ran forward under heavy enemy fire to the section commander and the forward scout, who were wounded during the initial contact. Private Norden killed one North Vietnamese enemy soldier whilst moving forward and, having expended his ammunition, recovered that enemy's automatic weapon, which he used against further North Vietnamese Army soldiers. He then half-carried, half-dragged the severely wounded section commander back to the section. Private Norden, seriously wounded, again advanced to the forward scout. He pressed forward under enemy fire and reached the scout, killing the North Vietnamese Army soldier who had been using the scout as a shield. Having determined that the scout was dead, Private Norden returned to the section to collect grenades and moved forward for the third time. He cleared the area to enable the body of the scout to be recovered. Private Norden showed a complete disregard for his own personal safety, and his courage and selfless acts resulted in the enemy position being secured and likely saved the lives of the other members of the platoon. Prime Minister.
It is indeed a privilege to join with Her Excellency the Governor General as we honour an Australian hero, the late Private Richard Norden. Today here at the Australian War Memorial and all over our nation, we observed a minute's silence, a solemn echo of that moment 106 years ago when the guns fell still across Europe, and a moment for all of us to remember and honour every generation of Australians who have answered the call to serve. Every name, every face, every future lost and every future changed forever. Every young Australian denied the chance to grow old. Together we renew a promise our nation made to the fallen, to their families, to veterans and to their loved ones. A promise to remember. It's been more than 56 years since fierce fighting at fire support bases Coral and Balmoral saw 25 Australians killed and over 100 wounded. It would be Australia's longest and deadliest battle of the Vietnam War. The terrible toll would have been higher but for the courage of a 19-year-old private from Gundagai by the name of Richard Norden. The Governor General has shared his citation. It tells of Richard Norden's extraordinary courage, advancing under heavy fire to help his wounded section commander back to safety. And then, by now wounded himself, going back into deadly danger to try and save another injured member of his platoon, the forward scout. On discovering his comrade had been killed, he fought on, clearing the area so his body could be safely recovered. Such was his courage that the enemy soldiers abandoned their positions, and as a result, many more Australian lives were saved. These deeds are more than worthy of the highest military honour our nation can bestow, the Victoria Cross for Australia. Today, in honouring Richard Norden and all he fought for, Australia also honours all those who fought for him. His fellow veterans, those who served alongside him and those who took up his cause when they learned of his story. Everyone who kept alive the memory of his valour. Everyone who has championed and advocated due recognition of Richard Norden. And everyone who has kept faith with Australia's promise to remember all those who have served and their loved ones. The Hall of Valour here at the Australian War Memorial bears the names of 101 Australians who have been awarded the Victoria Cross. By any standard, the late Private Richard Norden belongs in their esteemed company. The Victoria Cross for Australia is a rare honour and a unique one. It is open to all ranks, and all ranks of the Australian Defence Force are required to salute a Victoria Cross recipient. Today, all Australians salute the memory of Private Richard Norden, VC, lest we forget.
Can I say something? Because today in Sheridan Street, the main street of Gundagai, they will be marking this with great honour, with great pride, with great respect. On the top end of Sheridan Street, there stands an obelisk, a monument, which has more than 1,100 Gundagai and district names on it. And that epitomises what regional Australia has done for this nation. And Richard Norden is just one more chapter in that great sacrifice, that great service that so many Australians have done. Those people who have gone from regional Australia to serve our nation. But for Richard Norden, today he has been honoured, 56 years after his brave efforts, with Australia's highest honour, the Victoria Cross. And I'm sure the Mayor of Gundagai, Cootamundra Regional Council, Ab McAllister, and all of Gundagai will be very, very proud of this moment in our nation's history. Richard Norden, we owe you a great debt of gratitude. Thank you for your service. You have been honoured with Australia's greatest honour, and that is a wonderful thing for a small town of Gundagai, which has given so mightily to this nation's effort to ensure that we have peace and freedom today. Thank you very much.
those media that are interested, media that are interested, we have, because of